Our to-do list. So if we go to our to-do list here, we've already done a CSS overhaul, but we forgot to do the logo. So let's do the logo real quick while we're at it. For the logo, I thought of maybe using a hummingbird because of the word flitter. So I'm going to do a search for hummingbird, and I'm going to search images. Now, I apologize if I take somebody's logo. This one's perfect. I actually admit I did look at this one before, and it is just the perfect image. So we have that right there. I'm going to save that image to the desktop. Normally, you can just copy and paste into Photoshop, but when they're transparent pings like this, you first have to save it, and so you can see it's right here. And then I'm going to open that with Photoshop. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, so Command T, I can resize it, so I'm going to bring it down right about there. Okay, so we're going to apply that, and our background border, let's go ahead and grab our background so that we can have something to work with. So we have that right there. We know that's our background, so let's pull that up top. Okay, so we have our bird. Maybe we can give it a quick white stroke. So you see right there, I gave it a 3-pixel stroke on the outside. Looks great. Now let's find a font real quick that looks well with our site. Actually, that looks pretty good. I'm using Cooper Standard here, and if we took that and use the same color scheme as they have, but instead of using the blue, I'm thinking I want to use a green just because our bird is green here. So that looks pretty good. Let's add a stroke around that, same 3-pixel, and you know what? That actually, I kind of like that. I actually like that a lot. So I think I want to space out the I'm just going to space out the here, let me if I can bring that over here. Okay, so I want to space out the text a little bit, maybe make it 50 pixels spaced out. No, is it 25? No. Yeah, that looks good. Alright, so there we have our there we have a pretty dang good logo. So let's go ahead and save that. I'm going to hide this, and to save it, actually I probably should show you this. So to save it, what I need to do is remove this border here, or the background. I'm going to merge visible, and I just copy the whole thing by hitting Command A, Command C, create a new one, and then actually will create the exact dimensions of my icon or my logo. So there I paste it, I take out the background, I save for web and device. Here I want to maintain a 24-bit ping, and so I have that set. I save that. Okay, so there we have our logo, and it's going to be a little bit bigger than that one, but that's okay, it doesn't matter. So right here on above the container, we now need a header. So we're going to create a header div, and the header has to contain the same dimension specs as the container, meaning the same width and the same alignment. So here we're going to do an image tag logo, and actually not teach me to code, sorry, flitter. And so here if I hit refresh, you're going to see there it is, but it's way over there. We don't want it way over there. We want it more in the center. So let's change our header here. Let's add a header right above the container, and we're going to also have it be the same width. In fact, we want a lot of this stuff, so I'm going to copy it all over for right now, and then we'll just remove what we don't need. We don't care about the border. The margin top we do want to maintain maybe about 15 pixels because the wing goes pretty high. Padding, we only care about the well, I don't know why I have padding like that. You can have padding like that. So anyway, padding for right now I'm going to leave as empty. I don't want a background color. Margin I don't really need. Actually, I take it back. Margin I do need. Let's have the margin right there. So actually, margin would be 15 pixels on top, 0 pixels on bottom, and auto again. So let's see what we get. Okay, so we're getting there. So let's actually make it a little bit bigger because I think it'd look cooler if it overlapped a little bit. So let's do 735. Let's see, 785. Yeah, see how it kind of pulls over the edge a little bit. Maybe let's do 815. Yeah, I like that. So now we need to remove the margin top here because we had that big space between. So now there we go. We have our flitter logo. Looks great with everything here. On the right side of that, we have a sign out, which we do need, and I didn't add there. So let's go ahead, and in the header, we're going right after we're going to have a top links container, and we're going to use the same technique that we use right here. So I'm going to let's say we want to add one. I don't need to worry about the size. So let's see here. We want the background color to be white. We want the padding to be maybe 10. We do want the border and the radius. So, or the border radius. So let's go ahead and grab that. We're going to go over to our application again here, and we're going to say, here is our logo, and then here is our top links container, and link to login or whatever it might be. Actually, our link here is going to be log out, and we're going to have that go to our log out path. Okay, and so if I refresh here, you see that it's down at the bottom there. So the problem is that the width is too wide, and also the logo width is too wide. So we know that our logo is 268 pixels, as you can see right here. So we're going to set our width on the logo header. Actually, I do this. You don't need to do this, but I do it for readability. So we're going to say this is a float left, and we're going to width this one to about, let's say, about 400 pixels, and then we're going to do the same thing over here, and actually let's do that, and we're going to float this one right, and then we're going to do width of maybe 250 pixels and see how that looks. Alright, well, we forgot to add our clear, as you remember, so we need to go back here and add a clear, and that clears out stuff below it, and there we go. That looks pretty dang good. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to bring this down further and align it to that if I can. So to do that, I want to first off, I want to adjust the width a little bit to make it let's see what happens when we put auto. If I do auto, it should actually resize to itself, which is what I really want. So then we want our margin on the right to be, and we could probably calculate that out. Let's see here, 815 and 715, so maybe 50 pixels, but that seems like a bit much. Let's try 25. Let's try 30. So I'm just going to eyeball it here. That's good enough right now. So we have that, and then we want our margin top to be 50 pixels maybe. There we go. So that looks great. So there we have our logout link, and we're going to also put in there, excuse me, we're going to put in logged in as current user dot name dot username, and maybe one of the pipes at the end there to separate them out. There we go, logged in as cavnab and log out. So we're looking pretty dang good. So we got our logo, we got our side bar here, we have our logout link, and let's make sure it works. Nope, doesn't work. Let's see why it doesn't work. So if we go to our session controller, log out, and it goes to root URL. That's the problem. We don't want to go to your root URL. We actually want to go to login path. So, or login URL, as it may be. So, all right. So now we need to go to. Maybe that wasn't the case. Application controller. It's trying to load. Well, of course that's the problem. Forget what I just said here. That's not it. What happened is that our application, our layout is loading this no matter what. So what we want to do is we want to remove this and say, okay, if current user else, and then we're just going to show a login link. And let's have these lowercase because I think it looks better with this style, this layout. So hit refresh. Now it doesn't know the Gravatar URL, and the reason it doesn't know that is because it's requiring the site contents for here. So actually, if we, for right now, let's just go ahead and have it only include the site contents if the current user exists. So, and eventually what I'd like to do, or what you can do, is you can add a new style or a new layout for the login and logout pages, stuff like that. So, all right, I'm going to log back in. Now we're logged in as cavnab. There we go. So we have our followers. We have all this stuff. Now I told you about this being float left. Excuse me. And I do still want to do that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just show you what it'll look like. So let's do 40.times do, and that way we can show you what it looks like here. So let's grab this image and create an image tag here. We don't need any of this stuff, and what I'm going to do is make this current user. So now you'll see 40 of myself right here, and it actually looks pretty good just like that. I might make it a little bit smaller though, so that I can try and fit more in there. There we go. So now we have our all of them right here. I don't need to worry about our floats because it actually handles that by itself, and we're looking great. So there we go. So now we're set to 25. We have our followers set up. We are looking good. Now let's go back to our agenda here, and so we have display right contents, which is complete, CSS overhaul, which is complete. Now we want to manage our following list. So when we click on following, currently it does nothing because we haven't set up that link, but we do want to make it so that we can manage our following list, or the people that we follow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue using our users controller, and I'm going to create a new method here called following, and here I'm going to well, is it user? You know what, I'm not going to put it there. I'm going to put it in the home controller. Let's go to the home controller. That's where everything else is, so we'll put it in here. So we'll have our following and our followers, our following users are going to be, actually I think it's just friends, isn't it? So we have just current user.friends, I believe. Yeah, it's just friends. So never mind. We really don't need to do it right here. We can do, let's just say friends is equals to current user.friends, and we can create the list from there. So okay, so now we come down to here and we want to create a following.html.erb, and let's take a little bit of our content from our show, and to do that we have our, we don't need this right now, so let's just have that there. Actually, we don't need that either. You know what, I don't want to deal with any of that yet. Okay, well that was interesting. Okay, so let's go to our routes and make sure that we have the route in there. So we have our home controller here. Now we want to map following and controller would be home and action would be following. So now if I go to just /following, it'll show all of the people that I am personally following. So let's try that, and it has nil.allflits. I don't know where that's coming from yet, and I really don't care yet because I want to add it to our side contents on that link. So here we have our empty link, which is right here, and I want to add following path. So let's refresh here. We have following, and you can see right down there in the link that it is going to go to following, and now we can look at this. Okay, I'm ready to look at this now. Okay, so it's going to show, which tells me that my routes are out of order. And if you look right here, we have our resources, user flits, and it just goes any parameter with /name will actually have it show up as show. So what I want to do is I need to have that route before that route because they are top down by priority. So if I hit refresh now we see it. But if I still go to cavneb, there you go, it will show that. So the only thing is that we can't have somebody with the name following. So why don't we add a quick thing here saying that the username cannot be following. So validates exclusion of username, and I don't remember how what the documentation is or how that one works because I've actually hardly ever use it. So let's take a look and see how to use it. Exclusion of username in, that's what I thought, in. So let's say, yeah, admin, super user, and following, and add a message here. Is not a usable username. Alright, so now if someone tries to sign up with any of these things, that won't work. Okay, where were we? Alright, so now we're here. Let's take a look at how it looks over here on Twitter. So if I click here and I want to look at all the people who I am following, I click on that and it shows all of my big list of people that I'm following. So by username, so it has the icon, hover over it, and let's see how that compares to our own stuff. So it's actually quite similar to what we already have. Difference being is that they're the straight lines versus the dotted lines, which I don't really care too much about. Action on the far right side, big name, actual name, which we don't have, and then their last flit information. So no problem, we can do that. So let's see here. If we go to our following list, and I want to look at how we're doing this right here. I'm going to copy and paste this, our flits partial into here, and we're going to use the same ID because it's the same style. But instead of flits, here we want to go through and use, we want to have current user dot, actually we already set that up above, so we're going to do friends dot each do friend. Friend. Okay. And here as well we want to use this. I explained how this worked before, so we just want to make sure that we have the first class set to the first one, and we want to have our image, gravatar URL, and then over here we have our username, and let's see here, friend.username, and here we want to have our friend.flits.last.message. Now the catch here is that might not exist. So what we want to do is we want to say if friend.flits.length is greater than 0, then we're going to go ahead and add that. If not, we can either have a default message where they don't have any flits or leave it blank, which is probably what I'll end up doing here. So we have our friends flit last message, and then we want to have that as well. So there we go. So if we refresh our following list, we have the face, we have the name, we have the last post, and how long ago it was. Now this is looks a little bit different, so I'm going to change it around a little bit, and to do that I'm going to put the name within a h3 tag. Let's see how that looks. Link to friend username and show, and looks like I never finished the link on that one. So let's go back to our site contents, and we want to do our user flits path here, and then friend.username, and of course we need to update this one as well, and then flit.user.username. Okay, so now that we have that, that's a little bit bigger, then it's going to push the message down on the next line. How do I get a new browser open? There we go. Oh, looks like I must have dragged it out. Okay, so we have that, and then we have ... about. So we don't need to have these on different. We don't need to have those on different lines. So let's go ahead and refresh our page. There we go. We have it somewhat. Now we're running into the issue where we have our style. So just to make sure that this works, I'm going to do margin 0px here to make sure that it does look good, and that does look good. The h3 doesn't look good though because it's a little bit small, so I want to modify my h3 tag within the flit message container. So let's go to our application.css, and I think I have our flit message container here somewhere. Flit message container right here. Okay, so right after that I want to add an h3, and so with h3 I want to have it so that it margin top 0, margin bottom 0, what am I doing, margin of 0, and font size 16 pixels. So let's give that a shot. Much better. Looks much better. Okay, so there we go. Here's yet another post 28 days ago. And maybe if we, I don't know if this will work or not because I didn't look at the style, but if I did a span, actually if I, let's see, let me go back here and go back to how I had it before and change this to a span. That way it won't, maybe it'll retain the style. No same style, so never mind. We'll keep it how it was and refresh that. Now all we need to do is add a button on the right, and that shouldn't be too hard here. Within the container we have everything floating to the left, but we want to set the width of the container to be about 435 pixels. So let's go back in here, and actually we might not need to do this. I take it back, we don't need to do that. So what we can do is right here we can just say div class equals button container. Alright, so within here we want to have our button. So it's going to show up on the bottom for right now. What we need to do is we need to go back to our style, and we want to have a button container here, which belongs within here, and we're going to float this one to the right, and let's see how that looks. Floats to the right, it looks good, however it's aligned to the bottom. It's actually aligned to the center, but I don't like how it is, so therefore I want the other contents to be floating left. And right now we have our message container floating left. We don't have our H3 floating left and our other stuff floating left. So let me go back to our following list, and if we took that out and stuck it right there, nope, that didn't work either. If we change that to style equals float right, same thing. Okay. Maybe I'm going too quick because I'm not thinking as well, and plus my stuffy nose is bothering me, so sorry about that. Anyway, flip message container. Let's see what the style looks like on that. I'm going to close all these out because they're just in the way. Alright, so flip message container does float left, and it has a width of 450. So our width of 450 goes to right there. Okay, so it does have a width of 450 and a margin left of 10, so it's going to be a width of 460. So the message container is floating left. We want to float right next to the message container, so I do want it right there instead. And the catch is I need to make sure that the button container has a width set that will fit. So the width needs to be about 65 pixels wide. And if I do that, no, but I think the reason for that is because our borders are colliding. So like I said before, let's set a border here, and we'll look at that border, and let's look at that border, and I bet they're overlapping, and absolutely they are. So I need to set this width to looks like about 375, but I don't want to do it in here. So this is one of the times where I actually would consider doing a style override, and here we're going to do 375 pixels. The reason I'm doing it right there is because we're using this style in other places as well, so we don't want to do that. We don't want to make it so that it is going to conflict with other parts of the site. So there we go. We have that. Now we can set this width a little bit wider to maybe 90. I'm going to set this to 335, and the width of the other one to maybe 110. So let's set our button container to 105. There we go. looks pretty good. Let's say 115. Give it a little bit of breathing room here. Perfect. So there we have it. Let's get rid of our borders because we know we're set now. Okay, so now we have that. Now we just need the button in place. So like we had the other button before, I'm just going to use the same style that we have on our show page. So on our show page we have a submit tag with a class of button. So, excuse me. So for this, the question is, do we want to have it, what we do is we want it to have it so when we click on it, it'll actually perform an Ajax call and change the follow settings for that person. So if I do unfollow somebody, then it will actually perform an Ajax and then remove them out of this list. So I need to create an Ajax button. And I'm just going to be doing this from the fly. I didn't practice this, so be patient with me. This might not work right away. Stop following. And let's see how this looks. Stop following. And our width now needs to be about 135 instead of what it was before. So let's do 135. And now I'm going to have to go back into our following and change this to maybe 305. No, that's way. Let's see here. So our button container, we want the text align to be right. Text align right. There we go. Good enough. So we have our stop following button right here, which does nothing. But I want it when we click on that to perform an Ajax call. So I don't remember if we have Ajax in this application yet. I'm sorry, jQuery in this application yet. We have our JavaScript include tag. I believe we do because we're using JRails. So yes, we do. So let's go ahead and let's go to our jQuery documentation and view how to do a simple Ajax call. Okay, so we're in the documentation and I want to go to Ajax here, and this is how we do it right here. We do jQuery.ajax, and I would just use this right here. It will explain how to do it. So so we can do it one of two ways. We can actually have the Ajax inline, or the way that I usually prefer to do it is having it at the bottom where we can control it a little bit easier. It's not bundled up with everything. So, and then within here, let's just make sure that it works. We'll just do a high. So come back here, refresh that. Okay, there's no button tag. Why isn't there a button tag? There should be a button tag. Tag in Rails. Let's see, adding a button. You know what? You don't always have to use Rails to do this, so let's just do this. Input type equals button, name equals, and we're going to give it the friend name. So name is equal to friend friend.id, and then we're going to class equals button and Ajax button, and value equals stop following. Sometimes people think that you have to use Rails helpers in a Rails application. That's not true. Actually, before it used to take up a lot more time to load that stuff, so you know, you don't always have to do that. So as you can see, when I hit stop following, it does actually call that. And if we want to go a little bit further, we can actually have it do alert this dot attribute name dot val, and by doing this, it should actually put out the ID of the user, which it doesn't. Let's see what we're doing wrong here. So it says that the val doesn't exist. Let me refresh. I'm going a lot off this by memory, so now it's saying it's undefined. So let's do just attribute name, see what happens. There we go. So the attribute name actually returns a value of 1. So this is our ID, so our friend ID is equal to that. Okay? So now once we click on that we want to actually make the call, the Ajax call, to the other side, or to the back end. So here we're going to add an Ajax. So instead of this, actually on click function, and yeah, I think all I need to do is let's see, user. I'm gonna do, since everything's in home, we're gonna do home, remove friend, and then I'm gonna pass in the ID right here, which is that one. So actually I don't need that. So here's our URL, and then the data type, which I believe is what it's looking as returned, will be script. Now instead I'm going to actually have it be this type, which returns, if it's success, it will actually return and say, okay, friend has been you are no longer following, and then I'll leave the message there, and the message will actually be what it gets returned. So if it's not making sense, it will shortly. So here we go. We're going to send this right here. We don't need any data because we actually, our data is being passed in through this way. We're going to use a post, and then when it comes back, we're going to do an alert. So there we go. Now, the way you know if this is, the way you know if this is working or not is by using your console here. So if I hit stop following, you see that it actually did do a request to /home/remove/1, which is exactly what we wanted. But because we're not returning anything, it's not going to do anything. So, let's go to our home controller, and back here we have a remove friend, and then we're going to do friend equals user.find, and then pass in the param of the ID. And you know what? I think to be safer, I'm actually going to use the username. So find by username. And so let's go back over here, because I don't really want IDs floating around at all anyway. So here I'm going to do username, and then home, remove friend, username. And actually we don't even need home. We can just say /remove friend /username, because we already know that we're us. So we want to go to our routes and add a new route saying map.remove friend, remove friend /username, controller is home, action would be remove friend. Okay, so now that we have that set up, our link will be just /remove friend /username. So if we go to our following, we have /remove friend /username, and then that should work. So let's go back and test this. If we go to our home controller and we have our friend, and let's do render text is friend.username, and then that will actually hopefully return the value that we need, so that we should see an alert saying you are no longer following username. And so we click on that, you are no longer following username. There we have it. So paint and kill back. Well, also you see that this did work properly. So now what we need to do is we need to say just current user.remove friend. And I believe that's already in our user model. Add friend, remove friend, yes. So let's go back here and say we need to do if friend exists, then do that. Okay, yeah. So else I'm going to render text equals none, which is fine for right now because I don't really see how people could pass in a non-username. So anyway, so there we go. We have current user.remove friend, and then we render the friend's name, and so that will actually remove the friend. Now the only thing we have left to do on that is when we're following them, we actually need to remove this div here. So I want to make sure that my li has the ID of the friend. So ID equals, and then I'm going to have the friend.username. So that way we can reference that ID and make it go away. So now we can say, okay, well, now that they're gone, I'm going to make this blind up. I think that's, let's go back to our jQuery, our jQuery, and look at our effects. So if we go into our effects, we're going to want to slide up. We can give it a speed, so I'm just going to pass in slow. So it's slide up, not blind up. Slide up, slow, and then that will actually make them disappear. So let's hit refresh here, stop following, okay, and then it's gone. There we go. I think that looks pretty good. Now, this, of course, is optional. You don't really need to use this if you don't want to. In fact, I'm going to take it out because I think that it's not necessary. So there we go. If we refresh it, we don't have any friends anymore. We're not following anybody anymore. We are very lonely, desolate people. So there we go. We're almost done. I know that this is a lot to take in one sitting, but we're getting there. I really want to wrap this up. So